What is a job people romanticize a bit too much until they actually do it? Story 1. Chef. Absolutely nothing like TV would have you believe. Maybe 10 of the job is actually innovating and cooking dishes. The rest is a ton of paperwork, scheduling, managing people, managing inventory, working with sales reps, and you also have to be prepared to jump in and help every and all stations in the kitchen at a moment's notice. You often work 60-hour weeks, 10-hour days, and you're on your feet a majority of the time. Answer: I absolutely love cooking, and I'm very good at it. Anytime we host, I always get an abundance of praise, and more than a few "you should open a restaurant" comments, no effing. Way my dad was in the hospitality food service industry most of his life. Even though he moved into management and had a decent income and okay hours, there's zero chance I'm doing service industry, and especially a chef. It's hot. It's dangerous. It's you being at work all day for almost no pay. And every special occasion, like holidays, weekends, or basically any other time people are normally with their families, you're at work. You're always at work. Not to mention the substance abuse that runs rampant. It's a nightmare job in a nightmare industry, and you can keep it. Story 2. Any job that requires a lot of travel. You think traveling will be cool, but then you realize you're just working or stuck in a hotel, eating unhealthy and running back and forth from the airport. Answer: I came to say this. Living out of a suitcase and spending more time away than at home wears on you, or it at least does me. The moment servers at airport restaurants in multiple countries started recognizing me because I frequent them so much was a wake-up call. I've had dreams of inventing new recipes while traveling because I wanted to cook for myself so badly, and all I can get is restaurant food. This doesn't even begin to describe how bad I feel about leaving my husband and animals alone for weeks at a time so often. Story 3. I strongly suspect being a spy doesn't involve half as many high-tech gadgets and spontaneous intimacy intercourse as I've been led to believe. Answer: my grandma was a spy for the proto-CIA. She was a courier. Her detail every day was to check in, take a stack of papers, envelopes, folders, and distribute them around DC. When she dropped something off, there were decoy drops also, and she had to stay and see which item was retrieved. When she was done, she checked out and went home. She carried a rabbit inside her jacket at all times. The rabbit was trained to go back to the handler if my grandma ever dropped it. They would know she was compromised, and she would be burnt. She was declassified in 1999, just after I turned 18. I had no idea until she just said, "Well, you know I was a spy for a while." Story 4. My suspicions turned out to be true after reading all of these comments. Every job sucks, just in different ways. Edit. I appreciate the replies from those that love their jobs, truly. Now, I'll just sit back and dream about hitting the lottery, even though I've never bought a ticket or actually know how to fill one of them out. Answer: I fudge love my job. I work in museum collections. But the job is hard to get, requires you to be overeducated, underpaid for said education, and you're competing with hundreds of other qualified applicants for the job. Also understaffing, lack of institutional support funding, and having to see the massive pay gap between academic and design staff versus administrative staff. My job is hard and stressful at times, but if I could go back and do it all over again, I'd still go into museum collections work. Story 5. Veterinarian. From the outside, it looks like puppy cuddles. In reality, it's crushing student debt, long shifts, angry owners, frequent euthanasia, and compassion fatigue. Answer: once upon a time, my dad offered to help if I wanted to go to veterinary school. I had been working with animals, mostly horses, for years. I declined on the grounds that while I love animals as I vet, I'd have to deal with owners. I got enough of a taste of small animal care as well from a stint as an assistant in a small animal clinic, so I got to see the full spectrum of dumb jerk owners. I'm not people-friendly anyway, but especially when I get to see the results of their stupidity on other living creatures. Story 6. Animal rescue. The job is rewarding AF, but also soul-sucking, and the saddest thing you will ever do. The things some people will say to you will make you lose faith in all humanity. Then someone will show up and restore it. It is a wild roller coaster, and in the end, it is more sad than happy. Story 7. I would say every freelance or independent job. I feel like people tend to only see the be your own boss thing without seeing the unstable aspect of it, money-wise, but most importantly, health and mental health-wise. Been there, aha. Answer. Freelance illustrator here can confirm. During my week, I am mostly dropping my portfolio for work, perusing Hungry artists for more work, networking, marketing social media, emails, applying for tabling space at markets and conventions, budgeting for merch, prints and shirts, invoicing and taxes. Like 20 hours of my week is actually the fun part with drawing and painting. And then being told my job will be replaced by AI and being told my job isn't real. Lol. Don't get me started on third-party scam sites stealing your hard work to put on t-shirts. Anyway, if you like the art in your favorite tabletop game, on your books, posters, album covers, thank an artist. Story 8. Teaching. You think you're molding young minds and get to enjoy being with children all day? Till the system works you so hard you don't have the capacity to help the kids you want to help, and you're so burnt out you don't even care. Answer. My mom just retired from teaching after 52 years. She said one of the worst parts was policy and curriculum guidelines being set at the state-federal level by people who hadn't set foot in a classroom since their student teaching days, and how politicized it's become. And having to constantly benchmark everything for the state, and teaching how to take standardized tests so your school doesn't lose funding due to low scores. She taught first grade, and it was important to her for her kids to have a really solid foundation so they weren't playing catch-up their entire school career. The last few decades were really frustrating because they were simultaneously trying to make kids smarter by teaching things earlier, but also discouraging critical thinking. We're concrete thinkers when we start school, and the average kid is going to struggle with abstract concepts until their brain matures more. I also think my mom didn't realize that she would have to testify in child abuse cases, or the number of times she would need to report things to CPS when she started her teaching degree, or that she would lose a couple of students to domestic violence over the years. Story 9. Marine biologist. The reefs are degrading and dying more every year, and it's basically your job to be clinically depressed about it. Answer. Not necessarily true. There's plenty of marine biologists who study different marine ecosystems. They are still clinically depressed because getting into science is really tough. Getting a permanent position as a scientist is almost impossible. Think 30 highly qualified applicants for one job. That's after getting your PhD, where finding a position can be just as tricky. Story 10. Any high travel job, especially sales. Flights, hotels, and meals out, and time away from you family and important events gets old real fast. Then you still have to sell, forecast, close deals, and deliver to your numbers. Those numbers are usually completely arbitrary and randomly made up by your company. Then if you miss them, you're fired. If you make them, they raise them the next year. Answer. My job isn't high travel, but I take a few trips a year for work. Grandma will say, "Oh wow, you're going to NYC this week?" Send pictures of Central Park, and then has to be let down when I'll respond, "Well, actually, I'll be spending a couple nights in a suburban NJ hotel and driving over to our site on the south side of Staten Island during the day. Probably won't even see the skyline." Dad doesn't travel much anymore, but he did 2-3x a month for 25 years. We'd think it was so cool growing up that he's been so many places, and he'd always say, "I've seen nothing in most of these places, except meeting rooms, courtyard inns, and whatever sports bar was closest to the hotel." Traveling for leisure, I used to ask him for any recs in places like San Diego or New Orleans, where he's been a dozen or more times, and he'd have nothing to say. So I gave up. Story 11. Homesteading. You don't want to work for the man from 9 hours to 5 or 5 days a week for 40 years and then retire? Congratulations. Now you're working 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day for the rest of your life. Answer. I knew a retired couple who sold everything in the U.S. to start an organic farm in Uruguay. I was backpacking nearby, so I took a detour to visit. They looked like they'd been through war. The farm was broke, and the only thing keeping them from total ruin was renting the land they were unable to farm to nearby ranchers for pasturing. They worked all day every day to run a cow parking lot. They've since sold the farm and moved to Florida. Story 12. Working as front desk agent in one of the most expensive and luxurious resorts in the world. You love traveling, and sometimes you meet celebrities you dig, but when your average guest is from the top 1, nothing drains your soul more than serving people who feel like they own you. Story 13. I interned as an art restorer. It was incredibly tedious and lonely. Were there cool things about it? Absolutely. Is it worth the competition and level of schooling required to do it professionally? Not in my opinion. Story 14. Professional musician. You have to play some pretty soul-crushing gigs to make a living unless you're famous. Story 15. Baker. If you mess up one thing, it can ruin an entire week at the bakery. You have to be on your game almost constantly. Story 16. Pet services. We really do all love dogs and animals, but your sweet little baby is actually just an animal, and they act like one. Sometimes we have the best angels ever. Other times, the dog is trying to eat us the whole time. Doing dog sitting on more than one occasion, owners would tell me their dog was potty trained. Dog pottied on the floor every day more than once, and they had pee pads in every corner of the house. They knew, but lied. Or they tell me their dog goes on 3 walks a day. I take Pooch out 3 times a day. By day 3, the dogs look at me with sorrow in their eyes as they realize they're gonna have to go walk around again in the summer sun, which they have not been doing more than twice a week, normally, lol. Answer. I think most work with animals is like this. People love animals, but then find out most of the time is spent doing what are essentially messy chores, cleaning up poop, putting out feed, etc., or difficult and fun things, like dealing with behavioral problems or having to put animals down. Also, the worst part of all, having to deal with the people who own the animals. Story 17. Healthcare. No, we do not spend our time fudge each other. I couldn't even brush my teeth nor comb my hair during my 24-hour on-calls, let alone look at another person with lustful eyes. Story 18. Farming ranching. Television shows make it look glamorous. It's hot, unending back-breaking work 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Answer. I grew up working on dairy farms and cash crop farms in the area I lived, as there was a huge farming community there, and lots of people needed farm help. It is extremely difficult work, and I thought I would never want to do it again. While I know that I would probably get tired of the 7-day-a-week commitment, I can say now 20 years removed from it and cooped up at a desk all day that there is a lot of joy and fulfillment to be found doing that work. I thought I needed mental stimulation as I was academically inclined and so pursued jobs I thought would offer that. Needless to say, where I am at now, there is little mental or physical stimulation. While I agree that most people who romanticize it have no idea how hard and smelly it is and wouldn't last on a real farm, if you know what you're getting into, there is a certain simple romanticism about it. If you could remove the fact that most farmers struggle to make a living from it. Story 19. Speaking as a novelist, I'm a firm believer that everyone has a book inside them. It is not always a good book, and sometimes it should stay there. Story 20. I'd say veterinarian or vet tech. The industry as a whole has changed the past decade to more corporately owned practices. This means higher prices and less staffing overall. Veterinarians are among the highest tragic end rates by profession, and it isn't getting any easier. It's not just puppies and kittens all day. Story 21. Nursing. They think we are Florence Nightingale? The amount of friends, relatives I have met who have shared that if they could redo their career, they would want to be a nurse. My kids would have to fight me to be a nurse or any shift work, to be honest. Answer. Nursing has been a solid career that has allowed me to be home with my kids and make a decent living. That being said, the work is gross, hard on your body, and way too often very, very, very sad. I work in LD, and everybody thinks it's all cuddles and babies. People look at me like this when they hear what I do. But you spend a decent amount of time shoot yourself hoping nothing bad is going to happen, managing parents that do substances, helping deliver dead babies, giving people bad news like they're going to lose their other fallopian tube, and IVF is now their only option, telling people something is wrong with their baby, etc. And on top of all that, even in the healthiest case, people are still incredibly rude to you, patients and doctors. So don't go into nursing expecting peaches and cream. It's a hard job, and we don't get paid enough for the work we do. But I will say, I wouldn't do anything else. My job gives me purpose and food on my table. It gives me a lot of time with my kids. I wouldn't have chosen anything else, even with the bad parts. Edit. Been a nurse for 8 years, all bedside. Story 22. Teaching. People think it's just summers off and inspiring kids, but it's a lot of stress, grading, and meetings you didn't know existed. Story 23. Military service. It actually sucks. A lot. Your start time is 0630. Be there at 0200. Why? So we can shiver for 4.5 HRs in the cold for no reason until XO gets there at 0628. Hey, it's 1 and 12 outside, let's go unpack a 40 FT metal Connex. Then take all that moldy equipment out, lay it out, inventory it, and pack it all back up. Tomorrow we are going to do it all again because LT didn't see there was 4 pages, not 3. Do you love your family? Well, we say we do, but we will keep you at work until 7 p.m. every night, including Fridays, because one SG dislikes his wife and doesn't want to go home. Want a traditional family? Well, not on your pay. We will pay you less than minimum wage and tell you how financially irresponsible you are for only making $960 per paycheck. Do you want your doctors to practice on you? Well, that's what they do. WebMD is the backbone of the military world. It's not a cold, it's the plague. Story 24. Any of them. If they pay you for it, there's a reason. The question is, what are you able to tolerate for the money? Story 25. Winemaking. My husband is a winemaker, and it is extremely romanticized. Until you realize how much stickiness, pressure washing, and spiders are involved, you're also basically a farmer, so work to be done all year long. Story 26. Chef. I dislike it. The hours suck. The work is grueling. The pay is shoot. The job security is non-existent. People watch shows like Hell's Kitchen, The Bear, and movies like Chef and think it's all yelling and this fast action bullshit. Not even close. As a professional chef, you are mostly managing vendor orders, sweating like a whore in church while standing at the pass for 5 to 6 hours and just moving product to and toward. Absolutely grueling. Hours are terrible. You have no social life. Pay is terrible. Raises infrequent. I worked at a 2-star Michelin restaurant, retired when my daughter was on the way. I was given a 2.00 raise after 4 years. No paid vacation, no benefits. Insulting. At a corporate job, I literally made twice the salary in 1 year and had 2 weeks of paid vacation and medical insurance. I partied too hard 12 years working in the food service industry. I was wealthy in 10 years, working an entirely different profession and industry. Story 27. Any trade job. More recently than before, office employees see the writing on the wall with AI layoffs and think to themselves, a trade job should be easy. I'm tired being chained to a desk anyways. It will be way better working outside and new places all the time. They apply and realize their office skills have zero translation to the trades and nobody wants to hire them. Give them a chance. Then when given the chance, they realize why people would rather work in the office anyways, because it's back-breaking work for the majority of trades. Story 28. Pretty much anything creative. Musician, graphic design, copywriter, it all sounds amazing till you're in it. Source. Have worked these fields all my life. Story 29. I think almost every job. For me, IT. People think I work magic on machines with flashing lights and data spools like something from a 70s data center. What I really do is answer stupid questions and shoot down silly suggestions in endless meeting from old people who don't work on computers, operating on little to no budget because IT is a business expense and a nuisance. Story 30. Healthcare work. Sorry, we are not like Grey's Anatomy. The DRs aren't even hot. They're mainly old and sassy. Story 31. Everything in fashion. From fashion design to modeling to marketing to pattern making to fashion photography. It's a world full of dislike and competition. No one cares if you life or die. I tried to continue in fashion, but as a makeup artist. Same story. You work your jerk off and still everyone dislike you. It's a world where your name needs to be seen everywhere every day for years and years. And maybe then you can make a full-time living out of it with the right connections, but only if you are also conventionally attractive. The people I kept in touch with from Fashion Academy are on the verge of a burnout, or they recover from burnout and going for different jobs now. Story 32. I think software engineers have a very highfalutin way of talking about what they do. They're hackers, they're elite, they're in a flow state, but in reality, day to day, it's mostly just plumbing. You're building something not terribly interesting, mostly out of off-the-shelf components. Answer. Most of the time, if you're working to maintain an existing software, you're just answering email stickets or doing dumb meetings with clients about how something isn't working how they picture it to be. I party too hard many hours, days, weeks doing research and having meetings. Then in the end, it turns out they don't really want it after finding out how much work and cost it is to add that small new feature. But the pay is nice, so that to keep me going. But there's some days where I feel like I'm stagnating and feeling unfulfilled. Story 33. I tell you what, a real romanticized job is being forklift certified. It is all the hype it's meant to be. Those managers can't tell you nothing. I'm forklift certified meanie. Free pass at work to do what I want. Story 34. Working at a public library. So many of my patrons will say, it must be so relaxing. Reading all day must be so nice. Meanwhile, I had to stop someone from watching hentai on our public computers and had to stop 2 patrons from fighting over a computer. Story 35. Teaching. All the other parts are so tiring and time-consuming. When you are in front of the kids actually teaching, it is the greatest thing in the world. Story 36. University professor. Political, grueling, exacting, and not particularly lucrative given the level of training required. No paneled offices with fireplaces nor squealing orgies, but plenty of people who are particularly good at late-stage manipulation, a la Pornell's iron law of bureaucracies. Though this is usual in any large organization. Jerry Pornell himself headed Boeing's Human Factors Lab. There are a few perks. Being accused as being a de facto academic liberal, then asking which major in the College of Engineering that was in and watching them turn pale is one of them. Story 37. Teacher. The unfortunate favorite opinion is that they only work 9 months and are paid for a 3-month summer vacation. Story 38. Police. You have all these TV shows with detectives and street-level cops busting down doors, removing substances from streets, catching killers, etc. All action. While in reality, your job goes from paperwork, dead body, paperwork, stopping some tipsy guy, paperwork, corpse with no head or gut spilling out while you have to secure the scene until the specialized people get there. Paperwork, repeat with occasional visit to school or some stuff where you're around kids. Dead body, some Karen shouting at you for being a useless cop, etc. Paperwork, go tell someone their family. Member died, paperwork, repeat until you leave, or the psychic eval renders you not suitable to work. On top of that, extremely long shifts. In case of emergency, they'll pull you out because you're needed. Bad pay with extreme danger. On top of that, you may have to get statements from someone who got violation, stabbed, or saw their friend family member get eliminated, and bunch of other stuff. Story 39. Factory worker, especially in our current political atmosphere, people say, bring back factories. Which I get the idea behind it since it was a job that could allow someone to support a family on one income. But actually doing makes you feel so drained. Standing in one spot for 8 to 12 hours, doing the same monotonous task, and working potentially 7 days out of the week. It's good money, but it's mental torture. Story 40. Archaeologist. You don't run around like Indiana Jones. You spend a lot of time looking at pottery sherds and trying to get funding. There's also math. Story 41. Touring with a band. 99 of us don't get the fancy hotels. The smell in the van gets horrible. It's exhausting. Glad I don't do it anymore. That said, meeting people in different places and chatting with folks who like your band is extremely gratifying. Also, sometimes you end up on a bill with a real banger of a band, and that is always fun. Story 42. Furniture making. People see these nice videos of someone hand applying some finish to the completed piece and think, wouldn't that be a nice job? The reality is you spend God knows how many hours going from noisy, messy machine to the next noisy, messy machine, making all the joints for a few mins of glory at the end. Then you end up working for diddly squat an hour. Don't ask me how I know. Story 43. Videographer. Has some super fun aspects, but the skills needed in the industry are always changing, so it's difficult to keep up. Story 44. Firefighter. The suit cannot easily be washed and it gets so hot in it, so it reeks of old sweat. Nothing glamorous about it. Plus, the real danger is the smoke more than flames. There's nothing heroic about dying of throat or lung cancer at 40. It's just a fudge tragedy. Also, professional firemen spend hours doing nothing, so it's super boring, but you know what? It might just be one of those jobs where it's for the best when they do nothing. Means no one's dying. For voluntary firefighters, it's worse. You go to bed without knowing if you're going to get called. If you do, there's no chance you don't wake your partner up, so it can put a strain on the relationship. Or at least, it takes a partner who's on board as well. Had a coworker who was a voluntary firefighter. He told me that some weeks he had a negative paycheck, as he was paid only if he was called, whereas some employee contributions, namely mandatory union fees, were withdrawn no matter what. No bonus for simply being on call. I don't know how much pro firefighters are paid, but it must be between not enough and no chance in hell I'd risk my life for that kind of money. And yeah, like all first responders, sometimes they do their best, and it's still not enough. And they get to see things nobody should ever have to witness. Lastly, if I fudge up in an Excel spreadsheet, I'm pretty sure my manager's gonna get over it at some point. Fudge up as a firefighter could mean that you eliminate your teammates. Honestly, anyone willing to do that job has to be completely nuts, but they also deserve all my admiration and gratitude. Answer: professional firefighter here. and you'd be surprised how little time we spend doing nothing. Sure, maybe late at night we can hang out and watch TV, but the days are chock full of training, PR events, and more paperwork than you can think of. Our turnouts can in fact be washed, and most professional departments will have facilities to do so. Cancer is real in our field though, not just from smoke, but almost constant exposure to diesel exhaust and other chemicals, even the stuff our protective clothing is made of, and most of us will be eventually get it. Not to mention the high rates of divorce, mental health issues, and substance abuse. Not to mention the absolute soul drain that is chronic abuse of the 911 system. I work in the LA area, and about 80 of our calls are medical, not fire, and about 80 of those don't need an ambulance or a paramedic. Our job is definitely over-romanticized in the media, but I, for one, would not trade it for anything. Out of all the bullshit we deal with, the one call where you actually save a life makes it all worth it. Story 45. Librarian, for those who like to read. It's very competitive, low pay, you fight for funding and against censorship because some people aren't comfortable with lifestyles they don't understand. Story 46. Security. It might sound fun sitting around basically getting paid to watch TV, mess around on a computer, play video games, and watch YouTube all day. But never mind, it is actually pretty cool, ain't gonna lie. Story 47. Truck driver, UK. When I left school, I got my HGV, as it was then, license to fall back on if I ever needed it. About 15 years later, I ended up between contracts and decided to give it a go. I was a freelance driver and quickly built up a good, solid range of contacts and contracts that meant I was never short of work. I spent about 4 years driving all over the UK and Europe, and every single UK job was a nightmare. Got treated like dirt for no reason, so much stress with everything needing to be done more quickly than humanly possible. Very little access to any sort of toilet facilities. Many places forced you to eat unhealthily, no cooking in the cab, and parking spots generally weren't safe or even a nice place to be. Taking legal breaks normally caused planners to feel inconvenienced, and life was just generally very unpleasant. Running in mainland Europe, though, was a delight. Nice roads, treated properly, clean and safe parking, and realistic allowances for time and traffic. Anyone thinking driving a large commercial vehicle in the UK is much more than parking in human slime-covered laybys, eating junk food and being told you're late and not allowed access to the facilities. Whilst you sit in a deck chair in the corner of a warehouse for 4 hours waiting for a single pallet to be unloaded is rather mistaken. Answer: I'm a truck driver in the US. I came to this as a second career at 50. Been doing it for 14 years now. Some jobs in the US are like you describe in the UK. I have found one that is more like what you describe in Europe. I do true long haul in the IS running from East Coast to West Coast and back. Decent pay, insane hours, and lots of beautiful scenery. Story 48. Therapist. LOL, people think they will be loved. If they become a therapist, turns out it's a stressing job with a lot of people even hating you. Answer: can confirm. Also, having friends who consider you free therapy is annoying. I've actually had to tell some friends I'd have to start charging them my hourly rate, considering how much they called and talked to me about their problems. Some of them did not take that well, and you can't really stop psychoanalyzing people. I asked my own therapist once when I was still studying to become one myself, and asked if I could turn it off somehow. Nope, you're cursed with it now. Best you can do is just keep your mouth shut. It really sucks when you notice friends and family being stuck in thought behavioral patterns that aren't helping them, but you can't do jack shit about them lest you become an annoying know-it-all or worse. Learned that the hard way. I really had to learn to let people deal with their own shit on their own timeline. Some people genuinely don't want help or want to get better. Story 49. Librarianship. You have to love this job to do it. The pay is low for people with master's degrees. The work can be heavy if you work at a regional or busy branch, and we're constantly under fire in the media lately and worrying about budget cuts. The day-to-day of the job is often assisting a homeless population that has a variety of substance abuse issues, wrangling teenagers, and helping elderly, computer illiterate, and non-English speaking populations. People can frequently be vicious, violent, opinionated, and intimacy harassing toward librarians. I think if folks saw our internal incident reports, they wouldn't believe even half of it. Don't get me wrong, I love and believe in what I do, and there are many wonderful moments, but it's not for everybody. Story 50. Insulating houses. Everyone thinks it's this glamorous job, but it's not really all it's cracked up to be. Sure, we get to crawl through old fiberglass in 120 attics, and we get to crawl through mud in flooded-out crawl spaces, but it has its downsides too. I mean, yeah, everyone wants to stand on a ladder in a blizzard cutting holes in a house all day, but eventually, nothing else will make you happy. You just kind of go numb to everything. Family, friends, hobbies. Nothing else provides that sweet rush you get when you watch foam insulation expand to fill a 12 gap in a sill plate. Story 51. Armed service. There are real heroes, but a lot of us are just IT guys or truck mechanics that might have to work a few months in a faraway desert. Some die for bravely facing the enemy. Some get ambushed. Some die because they are dumbasses that rarely consider their own safety, especially when blowing off steam and recreating. Veterans shouldn't command some supreme level of respect by default. Save that for the Purple Hearts, the Navy Crosses, the Bronze Stars, and others who have distinguished themselves. Sincerely, a POG vet with nothing but a NAM, GWO, a good cookie, and National Defense ribbon. Story 52. Kapdeuren 99 of the work is what I used to call Riverbend. All kinds of trashy stuff that has little to do with fighting crime. Crazy old ladies walking around naked, domestic disputes without any real danger for either part, but one of them wants the police to give family member a scare, this kind of thing. Story 53. Any white-collar job where you're in an office and you have the word analyst in your job title, and you have a little badge reel and a desk and a nice air-conditioned office building, and you have Teams meetings and a little laptop and banker's hours. TikTok romanticized the hell out of these jobs, but they're full of horseshoe, and they're not stable jobs, and you're subject to layoffs and stupid managers and stupid customers, and it makes you dislike life really quickly. Story 54. Teaching. The number of people think that they can retire from their first career and then teach for the remainder of their working life is wild. Story 55. Travel writing. Everyone thinks it's 5-star hotels and free drinks and loads of adventures, but really it's a lonely slog. Story 56. Pimp. It's really a lot of standing around on street corners all night in some sketchy neighborhoods and dealing with unreliable partners, all while dodging the police and other rival pimps. It's not at all like how it sounds in rap lyrics. Story 57. Librarian. I just love books. I would love to read stories to children are the top things I hear. We don't read on the clock, and story time is 1 hour a week. The rest is relentless customer service, hours of administrative nonsense, and unpaid and untrained social work. We help terrify people trying to get their immigration documents in order, court-ordered visits, teens kicked out of family homes and unable to return their books, schizophrenic people convinced our computers are operated by wizards, battered women needing restraining order paperwork. It's a lot. Story 58. City planner. Turns out your city is being planned by real estate developers, and city planners just do paperwork to make it look like the new developments won't mess up people's lives. Story 59. Farming. We play farming sims, romanticize getting back to the land and living in the country. But being raised by a farmer Let me tell you, most of human history has been either trying to get away from the farm or trying desperately to make farming suck less. The hours are long, the pay sucks, the work grinds your body down, and you have to be outdoors in all weather. Oh, and an entire season of backbreaking labor can be destroyed in 1 hour of bad weather. Story 60. This is a bit of an obscure one, but for me, the answer is working in Antarctica. I've spent 9 field seasons working on the ice as part of different research projects. In each of my deployments, I'd first pass through McMurdo Station before heading out to the deep field. I'd meet so many young people in McMurdo that all had the same story. They delayed, or dropped out of college, or quit their stable jobs for the opportunity to live and work in Antarctica. They all talked about how it would be this magical experience and had romantic visions of braving the elements like Shackleton. The truth is, though, that most of these young workers ended up living and working in McMurdo, often as janitors, cargo haulers, or in the mess hall. The work is terrible, and they are basically stuck for 6 months in a stinky little diesel town. They watch all the scientists come through and head out to these exotic and remote places, while they are stuck cleaning bathrooms in the McMurdo dorms. With that said, the work out at the field camps,